It is a peculiarly noble work, rescuing from oblivion those who deserve immortality and extending their renown at the same time that we advance our own. Those who take no pride in the achievements of their ancestors, near or remote, are not likely to accomplish much that will be remembered with pride by their descendants. From the time of the arrival of the first regular German colony at Germantown down until 1776 and later, Pennsylvania was the most favored of all the countries in America by the German immigrants. There were two all-sufficient reasons for this. First was the liberal government of Penn's province, and second, the illiberal spirit which greeted them everywhere else. To this may be added still another, the character of the soil, so well adapted to the needs of an agricultural people, such as a majority of these colonists were. Then, too, as the earliest settlers found plenty and contentment under liberal laws, they were not slow in keeping their friends and relatives in the old home beyond the sea informed of all that had happened to them. These favorable accounts, for in nearly every case they were favorable, turned the incoming tide in the same direction. Naturally, these people desired to go where their friends and kindred were, or if neither of these had preceded them, then where their fellow countrymen were, where the German language was spoken, and where the manners and customs of the fatherland met them on every hand. Came they with modest wealth, or came they steeped in poverty, as so many were, they could at least expect a welcome, nor was it often that this was not accorded in the fullest possible measure. There have been preserved in many families, and they are still told among their descendants, pleasant tales of welcome to new arrivals by those who were already on the spot and comfortably fixed. The nearest neighbors to the new squatter may have lived 5 or 10 miles away, but they quickly gathered about the newcomer and aided him in the construction of his humble log dwelling and in putting out such grain and vegetables as the season would allow. Often a cow and other domestic animals were bestowed by a well-to-do neighbor, and in this way the early hardships and needs were relieved until the settler was in a measure prepared to take care of himself and family. Could these charitable and neighborly deeds be looked for from men of alien races and tongues? No, but the German heart beat true, and never made a nobler record than that which was recorded to its credit in the wilds of Pennsylvania nigh 200 years ago. It was, therefore, not mere chance that directed this, the most remarkable migration of the last century. It followed along lines that we can easily understand today, and wherever else credit may be due, it is undeniable that the first impulse came from William Penn himself, and that as a lawgiver, a commonwealth builder, and as a man, he clearly stands before us as the grandest character that ever landed upon the shores of the New World. A single life measures but a span in the life of a nation. Therefore it was not given to William Penn to witness the splendor of his success in commonwealth building. He died long before his scheme of German immigration reached even the promise of its later development, but yet it was granted to him to enjoy something of the satisfaction and pride that comes to the man of great plans and ideas, when even the limited present projects its brightness into the coming years, filling the future with its radiance. Well could he exclaim with true modesty and with honest exultation, "I must without vanity say I have led the greatest colony into America that ever any man did upon a private credit, and the most prosperous beginnings that ever were in it are to be found among us." With the eye of faith he dipped into the future far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. William Penn in Pennsylvania and the governors of New York and other nearby states were not the only persons who made efforts to secure these immigrants. During the first half of the 18th century, some of the large landed proprietors in the New England colonies were intent on the same game. They sent agents across the Atlantic who fairly flooded the Palatinate and other German provinces with handbills and other documents to encourage immigration into that region. Nor were their efforts unsuccessful. A number of small colonies were persuaded to come over, and they were settled along the bleak sea-coast. But the unkindly climate, added to the sterility of the soil, and in some cases also fraudulent titles to their lands, soon had the effect of driving them away, they finding more congenial homes in the middle and southern colonies. It cannot be gainsaid that the Germans were preeminently such settlers as the province of Pennsylvania needed. From the earliest times they lived in the forests and cultivated the soil. One of the greatest of the Latin historians has told us that none of the German nations lived in cities or even allow contiguous settlements. They dwelt scattered and separate as a spring, a meadow, or a grove might chance to invite them. Their villages are laid out in rows of adjoining buildings, but every one surrounds his house with a vacant space, either by way of security against fire or through ignorance of the art of building. For indeed they are unacquainted with the use of mortar and tiles, and for every purpose employ rude misshapen timber fashioned with no regard to pleasing the eye. Caesar speaks to the same purpose and says, "They think it the greatest honor to a nation to have as wide an extent of vacant land around their dominions as possible." An eminent German historian has said that the overplus population of Germany has ever emigrated, in ancient times for the purpose of conquering foreign powers, in modern times for that of serving under them. In the days of German heroism, her conquering hordes spread toward the west and south. During the Middle Ages, her mail-clad warriors took an easterly direction and overran the Slavonian countries. In modern times, her political and religious refugees have emigrated in scarcely less considerable numbers to countries far more distant, but in the humble garb of artificers and beggars, the pariahs of the world. Her ancient warriors gained undying fame and long maintained the influence and the rule of Germany in foreign lands. Her modern emigrants have quitted their native country unnoted, and as early as the second generation intermixed with the people among whom they settled. Hundreds of thousands of Germans have in this manner aided in aggrandizing the British colonies, while Germany has derived no benefit from the emigration of her sons. The industry and honesty for which the German workmen are remarkable caused some Englishmen to enter into a speculation to procure their services as white slaves. The greatest encouragement was accordingly given by them to emigration from Germany. Early in the 18th century, one of the most distinguished of the sons of Ireland came to the New World. He had all the culture of the schools. There were few departments of learning that were unfamiliar to him. Best of all, his heart was full of love for the human race, for he caught his inspiration in the same school that gave the world men like Locke and Penn and Hampden. He came here full of high hopes and the most exalted ambition. Unfortunately, his schemes for the uplifting of the American people from the red man in his forest home to the refined dweller in the cities were not realized, and George Berkeley returned to Europe, eventually to receive a bishopric he did not covet. But the heart of the gentle prelate turned with an unquenchable and ever-living love to the green fields, the prosperous villages, and to the happy men who dwelt in America. Through the mists of the future he thought he saw what was destined to transpire in that land of his affection in the years that were still to come. And when the spirit of prophecy came upon him, he wrote words that have come down to us, their music reverberating through the corridors of time. In happy climes, the seat of innocence, where nature guides and virtue rules, where men shall not impose for truth and sense the pedantry of courts and schools, there shall be sung another golden age, the rise of empire and of arts, the good and great inspiring epic rage, the wisest heads and noblest hearts, not such as Europe breeds in her decay, such as she bred when fresh and young, when heavenly flame did animate her clay, by future poets shall be sung. Westward the cause of empire takes its way, the first 4 acts already past, a 5th shall close the drama with the day, time's noblest offspring is the last. Is it too much to say today that the hopes of William Penn and the prophetic visions of the poet-bishop have already had their realization? Is not Pennsylvania at this very hour the grandest colony ever founded in the New World? Which surpasses her? Which equals her? Does she not stand peerless, an empire republic, largely the result of this German immigration?